has been released. In a way, this seems epochal and extraordinary, and many people will see it as a victory. Indeed, on a human level, on a personal level, it is a victory. He's united with Stella, his wife, and his children once more. That's extraordinary. To see the images of Julian Assange getting on a jet and looking at his face and wondering what he must be feeling is kind of exciting and inspiring. It's curious that he has had to plead guilty in a bargain with the United States to the crime of espionage, making him the first journalist to be successfully prosecuted with that. I think that's a fact of the matter. There'll be more details after he reaches a Pacific island where there will be a trial and presumably, it seems, a sentencing equivalent to the time he spent in Belmarsh without one. You might be wondering why Julian Assange is guilty of espionage. You might be wondering why Julian Assange is guilty of anything. This is what Julian Assange is guilty of. People will say stuff like Julian Assange is guilty of putting American troops and service personnel in danger. That's the kind of thing people will say. But this is what Julian Assange is actually guilty of. Pay attention to this and think for a moment. I wonder when it was that Julian Assange was saying this. I'm not sure, but it's probably like 10 years ago, because he weren't in the Ecuadorian embassy when he was saying it, and he weren't in Belmarsh when he was saying it, and it's about 7 years accumulatively that he's been in one of those places, maybe even a little longer. Now, we live in a space now where perhaps all of us that occupy these spaces are, in a sense, the progeny of the likes of those early outliers in those spaces, and you might say, who you choose a hero. Maybe you were really into the David Icke perspective. Maybe you love Noam Chomsky or Naomi Klein. Maybe you were really into Alex Jones 30 Years Deep. Or maybe you are a fan of Julian Assange and what he has done and what he's subsequently been accused of. Have a look at this clip of Julian Assange. This is the Julian Assange that they jailed.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security alliance. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
Now, what Julian Assange describes in that clip is something that we all well now understand. Oh, there are provocations and causes for international wars that drain the coffers of independent sovereign nations. Taxpayers fund these wars. It seems that the money loops around somehow, ends up in the hands of the military-industrial complex. Do you imagine that there are similarities between the Afghanistan conflict and the Ukraine-Russia conflict and what's happening across the Middle